before we get into major stuff on the stream, I kind of wanted to get into a weird phenomenon that's happened lately, and it's a frustrating phenomenon, but it is one that I found way earlier, and it's the presence now, the ubiquity almost of right-wing VTubers. Now, there's a handful of right-wing VTubers who have kind of been doing their shit for a while. One of them is Rev Says Desu. If any of you are familiar with them, they've done content on me before, and I remember a friend of mine actually used to watch a lot of their stuff until they saw that Rev did content on me, and they were like, oh, this guy's actually kind of an asshole. But Rev is a right-winger who covers stuff basically like Asmongold, but from the perspective of somebody in the VTuber community. But it's all just right-wing shit. And then when you go over to his wife, Strawberry, she does the same thing. And what these people will do, which is a very frustrating thing, because it's like the most pathetic defense, but it is a defense that happens all the time, is whenever you push one of these people on the damage they're doing, they don't care. Like that's a thing we need to make sure we do. When we push people on the damage they're doing, remember, they don't give a shit that they're doing damage. They give a shit that they're making money. But they also have a tendency to fall back on Christian beliefs as this perfect defense for everything that could possibly go wrong. You can't criticize them too much because it's not their beliefs, it's the belief of God. You're actually fighting God, who, whether or not they actually care about God, it doesn't matter. They're using the idea of Jesus Christ as a scapegoat more than anything. So, a while ago, I covered one of these right-wing VTubers, and her name was Celestium. She was a very small VTuber at the time, and now, after a couple of years into, or a year and a half into Trump's presidency, she has now gotten over 100 concurrent viewers and is actually able to make damn near a full-time career off of being a VTuber. And if you remember that video, it is this one right here, Insane Christian VTuber Goes on Bigoted Rant. If you want to watch that video, you can, but the TLDR is this is a Christian VTuber who went on a rant against homosexuality and being trans and all kinds of stuff. Now, when this happened a little bit during the Biden era, there was a bit of complacency within the, not just the VTuber community, but just like the political community in general, where somebody went on a bigoted rant and you could just assume, okay, cool, their career is over. We don't live in that world anymore, and we don't live in that world largely because of Asmongold. Now, Asmongold is one of, if not the biggest streamer on the planet. He is seen by a lot of people to be, you know, the guy who carries the centristy normie position on things. But if we head over to Asmongold's channel, we aren't going to find just him talking about World of Warcraft or Path of Exile. That's something that he used to do a lot. He used to be, like when my girlfriend Saki watched him, she watched him for Path of Exile content. When other friends of mine watched him, like Xander Hall, they watched him for World of Warcraft content. But if you look at what he does now, he's talking about Hassan Piker. He's making videos about, we really need to talk about this. He's showing a thing from the Supreme Court saying America is done. And this is, I haven't seen this video, but I think this is, oh, wait, hold on. Supreme Court posed to strike down Trump's executive order that ends birthright citizenship for illegal aliens under the 14th Amendment per Fox. So this is what he's covering right now. He is covering politics from the perspective of a right-winger, but his audience, a lot of people who are pseudo-apolitical gaming normies, kind of assume that he's also an apolitical gaming normie, despite the fact that he's gone on debates with Destiny and other people who are more on the like liberal centristy left side of things. He gets in political fights a lot. He's not centrist or your standard political normie. He's actively signaling to right-wing tendencies specifically. But I'm not making this video to talk about Asmongold, because Asmongold is doing this because the political climate has shifted in such a way that it is profitable to be a right-wing bigot. Again, it used to be, I'd say even during the last year of the last Trump era, when somebody went on a particularly bigoted rant, they would lose sponsorships, they would lose, access to friend groups, they would get ostracized by larger communities on Twitch and YouTube pretty quickly if they had a standard normie audience to begin with. That has ceased being the case for a while now. You get people like Celestium who go on bigoted Christian rants. You get people like Mitsu, who I'm going to be covering a little bit later, who just go on a giant, bigoted anti-trans rant, and that's considered normal. You get people like Powder, who are just constantly stirring the pot, and then you get people who might actually be more centristy, but just kind of like chaos, and so they end up signaling to the exact same people. And again, I think the main reason this is happening is because it is profitable. There is a cycle that I feel content creators can go through, and it's a vicious one where you say something that resonates with your audience, and then you realize you saying it more often resonates so much with them that it makes you money. And then the more money it makes, the more you say it. And whether or not you believe it, eventually you start to drink your own Kool-Aid. You may not believe it in the beginning. You may say, I don't like trans women. I think they're all fakers and they're actually men who are angry that they have small penises and so they want to grow boobs to compensate. And when you say that, you may or may not believe it. I don't know what's in your heart of hearts, but you realize that there's an audience you build around you when you say it. And so you start building that audience more and more. And much like with a lot of our beliefs, the more we repeat things, the closer we get to actually believing them. It's a lot like how language works, where words that you use in private when you're not watching yourself suddenly become words that slip out when you are out in public. Take a content creator who uses the R slur a lot as an example, or the N word a lot as an example. And they may say that, oh, I don't use that word all the time. That's actually not me. They say that with their friends in private a lot, and then it slips out later because they have a habit, and the thing they are having to actively do when they're in front of an audience is suppress that particular habit. It's the same thing with beliefs. You may or may not be a bigot in your heart of hearts, but the more you say the bigoted things, the more they become a habit, and the more habitual they become, the more they just become a part of your normal, well, everything. And this phenomenon is a little bit frustrating because once upon a time, a while ago, I remember that Miss Peep was one of the first political content creators that I found that was a VTuber. In fact, actually, talking with her was one of the reasons that I wanted to do the VTuber thing as well, because my audience, when they wanted me to use my avatar again for videos instead of face cam, I know, I'm ugly, I get it. I wanted to pull that monkey's paw on my audience, so I grabbed all the fan art that had been used, and I saw that, hey, there's this other VTuber who's doing things politically. You know what? Why not go ahead and do that too? This makes perfect sense. It's exactly what my audience wants, but it's exactly the kind of monkey paw that I need in order to do this in a way that I like. But like outside of her, and she doesn't even do political content that much anymore, Niara and me, there's not that many of us. Now, they do exist. They do exist. There was one, I believe his name is Jackson. Maybe I'm incorrect on the name there, but there are a few of us, and maybe there is some benefit to more of us doing things together, planning content together, being more friendly with one another instead of just kind of like disparately being around. The only one of this whole group that I talk with frequently or Miss Peep and Yara. And again, Miss Peep doesn't really do content all that much, and even when she did, she's not that big of a content creator, which gets me to my other thing. The right-wing content creators who are VTubers, they are doing numbers. Like, the world is primed right now for the kind of divisiveness that they stir. The Trump presidency influencing Asmongold's audience, and then Asmongold's audience seeking VTubers to be their little incel waifus, basically, has enabled this whole content sphere of people who might have grifted or have drifted towards the manosphere, or might have drifted into other like nerdy spaces, instead find bigoted right-wing anime women saying all the things that they want to say, and suddenly they're just really happy. Again, 5 years ago, this might have been considered anathema. Just any VTuber doing things overtly political a lot was considered weird at that point. Now, it's the norm, but it's the norm for the right and not necessarily for the left. And maybe that needs to change. So here's my pitch for any of you right now. If you know of a lefty VTuber who covers politics, and that is their shtick, not just, oh, they're a gaming VTuber, sometimes talk about politics, but like their shtick is talking about this kind of stuff, let me know their names, because I feel like I'm kind of disconnected from those audiences, but I feel like all of the right-wing audiences are very well interconnected. When you look at the Twitter feed for, say, Celestium, you see that she is friends with Powder, she is friends with Kirsche, and that is the case for a lot of these people. They all normalize one another. They all operate with one another. They are all friendly with one another. And the left, unfortunately, is such an Ouroboros that we tend to eat ourselves more than we actually do the same thing. We don't tend to create networks the same way that the right does. We don't tend to tolerate people within our networks the same way the right does. We tend to purity test more. And anytime somebody says, like, yeah, you can see right-wingers purity testing themselves, you can see divide after divide and all that fun stuff. But ultimately, what does it mean? What does it lead to? How often do you still see those right-wing collaborators working together? Fairly often, actually. Trace says, I may have missed it, but why focus on VTubers and also FaceTubers? All right, let me explain. Because the topic of the video is the phenomenon of right-wing VTubers. There you go. That's the reason. The actual reason, the actual answer to your question, Trace, is the topic of the video is specifically about there being so many right-wing VTubers right now, and how they've managed to cultivate an audience. People who might not have otherwise actually had any talent or star power saying bigoted opinions has gained them those audiences. And hell, maybe that has caused them to learn the skills they need to actually be a legitimate entertainer, where they might not need that shock jock shit anymore. I don't know. I don't know for each and every one of these people. I am uncertain because I don't really watch their content all that much. I try not to watch garbage. So there is that. But on a broader scale, I already want to collaborate with more leftist YouTubers, whether or not they are VTubers. I personally don't care if they are VTubers or not. However, for the purpose of this video, because I'm recognizing the phenomenon of the growth of the right-wing VTuber over the last few years, I think we need to have a concerted effort in the leftist VTubers who actually are comfortable talking about politics as a big part of their shtick. I think more of us need to be willing to operate with one another. If the right wing is able to create a network the way they have, we need to be doing the same thing. And we need to make it organic. It needs to be a thing where we aren't just all on the same side on everything. We're people who disagree on a lot of things, but still generally have the same shared progressive values, and as a result are willing to work together. Like any other workplace, like any other group of organized individuals. That's an organic group of people working from a grassroots perspective to create something that people will enjoy. And from an audience perspective, you get more collaborations with people, and not just collaborations where, two political people are playing a video game together. Cool. But collaborations where ideas are being exchanged and talked about in a way that matters. I think we need more of that. And I know there are more lefty VTubers out there. For every leaflet, there's got to be another Miss Peep. For every Powder, there's got to be another Nyara. For every Kirsche, there's got to be another me. If there's any other ones that you know of, let me know. Anselin says, other than Dark Brandon / Nico Karazin, I don't know any other left VTubers. I think we need to get more of us together. I feel like many of us are isolated from one another because the idea of the political VTuber was already such a shift for people to begin with. It's not a shift anymore. It's not novel anymore. There's so many of them on the right wing. It's not a novel idea. It's not a thing that is that is niche anymore in the way that it was. I feel like we can capitalize that. I feel like we could get more people together talking. It's content for y'all that y'all will enjoy. It's networking for us so that we can develop more friendships, which are going to keep us more sane. And on a meta level, it just shows people what they need to be shown in terms of solidarity between people who have progressive ideals. That's my take anyway. Hopefully, things will improve in that particular regard. I hope. We'll see. We will see. I think another thing we need to make sure is to have fun while doing it, because, like, we can't just have a bunch of VTubers sitting here doing doom and gloom. Nobody wants to fucking watch that. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.